All right, welcome back. We are COMP397. That is web game programming, but not really. Web game programming entirely in the winter 2022 semester at Centennial. And it's week 4, part 1 of our broadcast and recording. And what we're going to do today is do a bunch of stuff. Let me go over it with you. So last week, what did we do? We did a bunch of stuff with Blender. We built an enemy robot that was, for some of you, very ugly. And for me, it was pretty ugly anyway. And we made a sketch first. We made a little reference diagram and so some simple stuff. We started with the mesh. We did not add a texture. We ran out of time for that one. And we did add multiple materials, but we didn't add texture. So that was something you could have done on your own with UV mapping. We'll do more of this today. And we'll keep Blender shorter today than normal. We also built a simple navigation mesh in Unity. Actually did all this in Unity. I don't know why it says that here, but it's actually here. Oh boy. And we created a simple scene, a menu scene as well. We built a simple UI in Unity for the menu scene, and we transitioned to the main scene from the menu scene. What we're going to do this week is the stuff that we didn't do last week, which is these two pieces: build for WebGL and deploy to GitHub pages. That's something we need to do. So deploy to GitHub pages. That's going to happen this week because we didn't have enough time to do it last week. And let's talk about a couple of pieces that we're going to have to do for Lab 4. So there's a couple of requirements for Lab 4. One part is the Blender piece, which is we're going to build a simple arch, a very simple archway in Blender. So simple archway. Let's see how that works. And maybe some other central buildings, because one of the things we're going to do with our tiles is eventually we're going to have some extra stuff. So Blender is going to be super easy. We're going to get a texture and unwrap it. Still take a little bit of time to do. So that's what we're going to do first. And then we're also going to be, let's move this over here, right? We're also going to do this lab stuff from Unity. So let me just make a copy of this, duplicate, and we'll put that in there. Just want to talk about it slightly differently, I think. Yeah, so we're going to make a mini map. If you've done mini maps with me last semester with 2D, it's going to be very similar. So the same process. In fact, if anything, we're going to try and do is use some of the same assets. So instead of you having to redo all that work that you did last semester, I'll give you some of the same assets to speed up our little thing. We'll build to WebGL for those people who don't know how to do that. And this is the tricky part, deploying to GitHub pages. How do we do that in 3D? And what are the disadvantages? We'll talk about some of those things in the setup. So that's what we're going to be doing today. In the course shell, so this is course shell stuff. Course shell material, right? That's this stuff. That's anatomy of a camera. I talk about a little bit of that inside of there. So please take a look. There's some information about what a camera is for those people who've never done 3D, the camera component. I will talk about this as well, but it's there in the shell. What's the near plane? What's the far plane? I should be able to ask you a question. You should be able to, kind of answer these questions after today's session. What's backface culling? We did basic navigation and pathfinding last week, but it's inside of the course shell. It talks about a nav mesh agent and so on. That's kind of stuff. Things that are due, Lab 4, which is something that we're doing this week for labs, is due this Friday. Assignment 1, Part 2, I've moved it to Sunday. I think you have time to get it done because you've already, for most of you, a lot of you did a lot of this already, as an example. So now it's just adding the logic to make that first piece go. So I moved it to Sunday for now. And Assignment 1, Part 3 has been released for your groups and is moved to week 7. So lots of time for that. We're sitting at week 4. And week 7 is after the mid-semester break. So that means you have tons of time to get this part done. The final touches for your WebGL build. So this Sunday is really just getting your first playable build working, your main mechanic, and a bunch of other stuff. Please take a look at the documentation that we've talked about before to get this done. Okay, so that's the thing we've talked about already. Okay, so that's the first thing. And again, we're sitting here at week 4. Next week, we're going to continue talking about responsive UI layouts. We're going to do more things with TextMesh Pro, followed by post-processing, color grading, and all that kind of stuff. And then when we come back from break, we're going to get into sounds and music and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's what's coming up down the pipe. Before we get into mobile stuff, the mobile part of our course starts in week 8. So that's where things get a little bit more challenging. And we add mobile touch controls and a bunch of other stuff there. Okay, so that's what's happening there. And yeah, let's go back to some of these requirements here, which is this one. I want to talk about assignment 1, part 3, which I've released, and assignment 1, part 2 now before we move on, because I think we need to talk about this a little bit. So up on the course shell, let's take a look at your assessments. So under assignment 1, again, I had eight groups submit assignment 1, which is pretty good. It hasn't been marked yet, but it's getting there. I did mark lab 2. There are some comments for lab 2. And I got to tell you that for the most part, you guys did a great job on lab 2. Some of you continue to embed your video and your report and your GitHub link and all that stuff. Guys, make it easy for me. If you embed all that stuff, I have to download a zip archive and unzip it for every one of you. It just adds more time. I can get this stuff done faster. Help me out. What I'm looking for is for you to submit a GitHub link, hopefully a YouTube link separately. As an example, if you're going to submit a video like an MP4 or something like that, make it a separate submission. Do not embed it in a zip archive. That is very challenging for me because it takes time for me to unzip it, load it, put it on my computer, and blah blah blah. It's a lot of work for 3 minutes of your video, guys. It's too much work, right? So please don't do that. And some of you, for whatever reason, just talking about lab 2 here, did not submit a working video at all. No video, no marks. Just letting you know. Or your video was very, very low. I couldn't hear you. If I could hear you, if I turned up the volume, I gave you a mark. If I could not hear you at all, you got 0, and I asked you to resubmit. Okay, your video that's not working, if it's like literally unhearable, you're going to get 0, guys. I'm sorry, I told you before. Same thing with your report. Some people submitted a report and it's completely it wasn't even submitted properly. There's stuff that was missing in lab 2 and so on. And we've talked about this before from lab 1. So please make sure you submit your report. Video and report are mandatory. So starting next week, so this week here for lab 4, I will not accept a working video that doesn't have good sound or that I can see your screen. And if you don't submit your weekly report, you forget to, or whatever, your GitHub link, you forget to, people do that. If you have missing components, you'll lose marks for all those things and potentially not even get your stuff marked. Okay, just letting you know. And not because I want to be mean or whatever. It's just really challenging for me because, I want to make sure that everyone gets treated fairly. And from an academic integrity perspective, you need to submit the things that I've asked you to, please. All right, so that's something that I've noticed. And it's not the first time I've talked about this. I've also talked about this in the previous lab as well. All right, so that's the stuff that we talked about. Otherwise, I think that they were done fairly well. So thank you for lab 2. And if it says dropped, Maria saying the lab says dropped. The reason why it says dropped, remember how we're marking? You get to do, you're going to do like what it says, 12 labs, right? Out of 12 labs, you get the best 10 out of 12. So that means if you did 2 really crappy labs and you couldn't submit them or you were not here or whatever, then that's okay. You can still get 100% because I'm only going to take the highest 10 out of 12. So Maria, that's why it said this lab is dropped. That's what eCentennial does. Don't worry about that because what it's going to do is going to keep saying that for every single time. So if you forgot to add your lab report, then you need to submit that stuff. I know it's visible in the video, but I don't care, Muksud. You have to submit it like everybody else. Okay, so that's what it is. I'm sorry to say it that way, and it's no disrespect to anybody, but I need to, please help me out here because there are, 52 students, and I'm trying to mark everyone on time, and it's challenging. And what I'm asking you to do is please submit your stuff, put it where it's supposed to be. Other professors will not even accept it. No problem. I get it. But like I said, Just make sure you have it in there. All right. So that is the stuff. Now let's talk about the assessment for assignment 1, part 3, which I've released. So let's do that. And I've included the PDF document in there as well. And what I'm going to also do is I'm also going to include the PDF document for on its own so you can read it. All right. So that's where the document is right here. So let's take a look at that together. So just going to go and put it into download. So this is what you would normally do. And when we launch it, you'll see something that looks like this. So again, assignment 1, part 3. Right now it's due week 7. So it's Friday, March 4th, 2022 is what it should say, not 2021. I'll update this. Damn it. But that's what it is due. It's Friday, March 4th, 2022. And really, it's a third part of a 3-part assignment. And what you're going to be doing it is you need at this point, a menu screen, an option screen, a game over screen. And for the first project, your target platform will be WebGL, like we said. In this part, you will complete the following tasks. Add logic to the assets and UI elements you acquired and or created in assignment 1, part 1, and modified in assignment 1, part 2. At the end of this assignment, the following additional features will be functional. Your gameplay screen, all gameplay elements for the game type selected should be functional. So for this point, it's all working. Health systems should be fully implemented. A mini map, so the stuff we're talking about today, should be really functional. Enemy pathfinding, which should be functional as well. And saving the game will also be working. Okay, so the feature will allow the game to be saved. I don't know what I was thinking. Create a final draft of your game design document for your WebGL game and update the GitHub repository for your game. Update the project management tool and make sure you keep track of your progress, and build your game for WebGL. Share it on a live site. Common requirements. It goes into a lot of detail here about stuff that you need now, for like everyone needs, which is basically telling you that all the stuff for your WebGL game that needs to be taken care of. So example, your game must include an inventory system that works, but not right now. The feature will not remain a placeholder for this release and will not be functional. We're going to make your inventory system work for the mobile build. Again, this is kind of like a transition where we have 2 parts. One part is your WebGL build, which is kind of like your prototype for the entire game. And then the second part, which is your mobile build, is really what our target or goal is for this semester, right? So that's what we're doing. Health system minimap will work. Your game will include enemies with AI behavior. So if they'll have a sensing suite, pathfinding, and steering behaviors. Right now we have pathfinding that I talked about last week, but you'll need also some kind of sensing suite where you have line of sight or something like that, as well as some steering behaviors that you can use for different things. Steering behaviors are beyond just regular pathfinding, but they add things like arrival, as well as seek and flee. Those kind of steering behaviors, you can add them to your AI agent. We'll talk about how to do that over the next couple of weeks. And you can also use A-star pathfinding or something else instead of Unity's nav mesh. It's totally up to you. Gameplay level must include a user interface that allows the player to pause the game, save the game, and load the game. So we're going to have to cover that over the next coming weeks, most likely next week, as well as the pause, save, and load panel must be activatable by some kind of key press. So it's got to come up and then go away. And saving the game will be fully functional at this time. However, this is the stuff that will not be working. Loading the game will not be operational. And the reason why I'm talking about this like this, and we're doing it in piece parts, is because when it comes down to it, loading and saving your saving game state, we'll talk about how to do that and where to do that stuff. So that is common requirements. From a game type specific requirements for making a 3D platformer, and a lot of you are, then all 3D platforms should be enabled at this point. Allow the player to navigate the level, hazards, all the hazards should be in place, and the goal should be there and functional. For a tower defense game, resource gathering should be activatable, and the feature will work with the inventory system. Gathering, recording, and expending resources will function, but visually storing resources in the inventory system will not function. And the reason for this is because I want you to focus on your inventory system for the mobile build, where you're doing that more. Tower types, you're still going to have all your tower types placeable in the scene, and all enemies should be working. Sandbox, crafting, survival, you're going to make your single theme biome. I don't think there's anybody who's doing this one. You should be able to procedurally generate all the layers of your biome using Perl and noise or something else, for sure. Day-night cycle, will be fully functional at this point. And you're going to use color grading to simulate that. Destructible environment will also work at that point. Your design document is due to be updated, as well as your internal documentation. One thing to note, some people, for whatever reason, last semester handed me the same design document like 3 times, and they had very little changes. This semester, you will have to make this different. Okay, there's different requirements for each time you submit your assignments. Please take a look at the game design document requirements, as well as internal documentation, as they are worth marks. Okay. Version control is there, your demo video is there, as well as putting it up on WebGL and so on. So that's the stuff that's due week 7. It's not due right now. And just as a review for what's due this week, because I think I want to do that too. Let's take a look at that. Again, I'll update that document with the proper date, but for the most part, that's what it is. Let's take a look at assignment 1, part 2, and because that's due this Sunday, and I want to make sure that you guys are able to do it like we talked about. Okay, so let's take a look at that really briefly. This actually says the right date. Yay! Okay. Again, so Friday, February the 4th, 2022 at midnight. So things that you will make sure work. Your menu screen, again, all features except loading the game should work. Gameplay screen should be playable. Game over screen should be there. So these 3 things for this week should be there and functional. At the same time, your player will be able to control their avatar through some kind of fully functional character controller or camera. I've given you a first-person controller, but if you were going to plan on doing a third-person controller, then it would be due this Sunday. Okay, just letting you know. Enemy AI sensing suite will be functional, which means the enemy should be able to detect the player. Okay, it doesn't mean that it will do anything with that information. Okay, so what I mean by that is, yes, I can detect the player. So in your code, and you should show that, but, and you could use a radius, you can use a line of sight, you can use a bunch of stuff we'll talk about, but that is basically what you can do. You're pausing the game. This feature will be operational. So how do I pause the game? What are your thoughts around pausing the game, guys, before we move into any kind of tutorial? Anyone have an idea of how to do that? How would I pause my game? How would I take care of that? So, okay, there we go. Michael says time scale is equal to 0. You could do that. That is definitely a way of doing it. But remember that it really depends on your updates. So the way that works is your update function in Unity is the thing that makes things move, right? But you still want to show everything. There's a lot of things that you can do to pause the game. You should also be able to pause your character controller as well. So you shouldn't be able to move your character controller in any way. However, here's the trick with slowing down your time to 0. And this is the challenge, right? Think about being able to click a menu. Sometimes people pause the game and they stop the game, like as in you get no input. So please be careful when you do the pausing. I'll talk a little bit about that. Impulse sounds are super easy to input to use, and we haven't really talked about them. And music soundtracks is you just basically embed it in your game and the go in each of the screens. So for now, I don't expect there to be like dynamic music, as if you have an enemy that's chasing you and you change your music up. That is not required. But music is like the simplest thing to add to your game. You literally put it into an audio source into your, let's say, a game controller, and it plays as soon as your level starts. It's that simple. Sound effects are a little trickier, and what you need to do is you need to set them up. Maybe what we'll do today from a sound effects perspective is make sure you know how to do this piece. Game design document is something that I asked you to update your GitHub repository and your project management tool. So that's all due this Sunday. Stuff that that I might talk about, things like an options screen will display audio options. How do I change that? Adjust music volume and sound volume and controls and all that stuff. How do I do that stuff? And it says key mapping options, write code to enable these features. So how do I remap my keys? And what key mapping options should I allow? This could be a bit tricky to code. And like I said, you have that's why you have 4 to 6 people on your team. So you can sit there and say, okay, so someone's going to code up that options that allows me to do different key mapping. How do I do key mapping? So imagine if I have controls, WASD controls. as an example, move my character, but you want to be able to switch to either WASD controls or your arrow keys. You don't want to do both. Simple key mapping exercise would be just only have one or the other. So not both keys will work. And that's easy to implement, to kind of enable or disable. That's enough for key mapping. If you also wanted to give the user a chance to map any keys, as an example, to movement, let's say, for example, they're they're left-handed instead of right-handed, right? As an example, and they want to just switch around their keyboard. So they want to move with the numeric keypad, as an example, 8, 4, 2, and 6 to move their, their character around. And they want to, jump with the up button or something like that. They want to remap their keys. They should be able to do that, but within reason. So in other words, you don't have to give them unlimited reasons, like unlimited options. You could also provide them with several different pre-done maps if it's easier for you. For example, they could choose an option to say, kind of a bunch of presets, 2 or 3 presets that you find is neat. And if, for example, you could have left hand, standard right hand, and kind of an optional one where you do that as well. So it's really up to you. This could be as complex or as easy to implement as possible. But the audio options, like actually making a music volume and sound volume increase and decrease for the entire game, well, that requires an audio manager in each of your scenes, right? So the audio manager basically says that they'll receive the audio options from your menu screen, right? And then what you would do is your music volume would be adjusted according to what the person put in the menu options for your master sound volume. So that's a way of doing that. Same thing with, you could adjust your master sound volume, your music sound volume, or just your effects volume. So you can split that up into 3 pieces. Again, this would be the easiest thing to do. And again, all you need to do is set up a sound manager with a mixer component. And again, you can look that up as well, but we'll see if we can handle some of that if we can today. I don't think we can. Okay, so the main game is your gameplay screen, and you have a game over screen where you give the user an option to play again. That's like a restart button or something like that. And there's music. You're going to control your avatar. Things like if you need weapons, then you should be able to trigger weapons and devices. Some appropriate animations should include it for the player's avatar. So if you're going to do a third-person perspective character and you know what you're doing, then you should have some animations that you can download, as an example, from Mixamo or someplace else to make that happen. Okay, I don't expect you to create your own organic animations. And if some of them are missing at this stage, it's going to be okay. All right, and the reason for this is because you have more chances as you move forward, to get this done. Inventory is not going to function. Health system will work. Minimap will work. And a health system, again, you can have a simple UI that includes some kind of progress bar, or you can have health bars on top of the player's head. It's really up to you how you get this working. But I think what I said is that health system is both of these two things. If I'm reading this correctly, is placeholders are there, but it's not working, and we'll implement this for your final version of the game, which is for assignment 1 part 3. So I think these two are there as placeholders only, which is good. Enemies with AI behavior, detail above, sensing suite, and pathfinding steering behaviors. This release, enemies will have their sensing suite operational, and when an enemy detects the player, they will attack if they are in range. So that's the only thing they need to do when we say, like, and when I say in range, let's make sure that your enemies, let's say, are all with, like, let's say close combat type loadout enemies, if you have that kind of thing happening. What about if they're hazards? As an example, let's say you made more hazards but less enemies. It would be the same thing. If your character triggers the hazard to function with they're in range, let's say, for example, it's some kind of like automated turret or something like that, then the turret will target the player and fire, okay, if it's in range. So again, pause, save, and load. Pause will be operational, but saving and loading will not work. And your game will have sound effects for different explosions and stuff. Game soundtracks will be there. All 3D platforms should enable at this point. So your 3D platforms should work. hazards will be in place, but not functional. So if you're going to make something like a hazard where it's flames or something, and you're making a 3D platform, 3D game, a 3D platform kind of game, which is most of you, then hazards don't have to work, but your platforms do, okay, for this release. And your goal should be there, but will not allow the player to complete the game. So that's not going to be required for the end of this week, okay? Most of you are not building an isometric tower defense game, but there's some things for you there, and same thing with sandbox crafting. It's most of you are building this, so that's why I went into that. Please read the documentation, and I've kind of gone over this before in the past. And remember this part, your game design document needs a second draft. And I'm looking for that for this release, so make sure you have someone doing that. Questions or concerns around your assignment 1 part 2 that's due this Sunday now at midnight. I moved the date. Michael says, are we going to cover ranged attacks and damage? How to do them, you mean? Yeah, we are going to cover that. I'm not sure it'll be today, and that's why I said if they're in range. And I mean what I mean by they're in range is keep it simple. If they're in melee range, make them do an animation or something like that, and to do an attack. Remember that this second assignment is getting you closer to your WebGL build, but it doesn't have to be complete. Please try and get as many of these things done as you can. So a couple ways to do ranged attacks, Michael, are you can use raycasting. So raycasting, where you're targeting where the player was, okay? And then the, again, if let's say, for example, you're making a laser fire, then you can draw a line. There's line renderer that will render a line from where where the turret was. Let's say it was a turret, they were firing at that direction. If you're actually shooting bullets, a couple ways to do that is you could make it so that the bullets are really, really super fast and so on. I'm really not sure this is feasible within a week. This is a lot. So how far did you go with the first piece, Joshua? Because this is just a build on what you did last time. And that's why I'm talking about this. See, I'm talking about this because I want to make sure you guys this is doable for you, right? So Joshua says not doable. Anyone else thinks that this is not doable for this week? If guys, I don't want you to fail. That's not the idea here. The idea is that you're going to have a challenge, but it should not be impossible. So if you guys think it's not doable for this week, I will move it away. Michael says, is the sensing suite the same as we did with the robot? No, that's a nav mesh. With part 1, we didn't have much time to go beyond the part 1 requirements. I started making our character controller, but that's all we have so far for part 2. All right. So, I mean, again, the plan is you should meet this week. So let's do this then. If that's the case, that's why I'm bringing this up. That's why we're talking, right? Because the last thing, but majority takes this. Yeah, I agree, Josh. I think that that it should be the majority. So normally it would be due this Friday, but what we're going to do, because we have time for week 7 is when the next one is due. Let's move this off so that it's not due this week, but next Sunday. So I'll give you enough work, because this obviously doesn't make any sense. All right. So instead of this Sunday, we'll move it off so it's next Sunday, and I think that's more reasonable. So let me update that as well, so that way you guys have that in there. And again, this is why I'm doing this administration stuff, because to be honest with you, I'm concerned, and some of this is because of the level of not all of you are gaming students, and I don't think it's fair for me to do this without an adjustment, and that's why I'm talking about it. Now, again, it could have been the case where you guys were ready, but I'm glad that Joshua, you brought it up, right? So and again, it's for me, it's all around being reasonable. I think if once we become unreasonable, and this is not just for COVID but in general, I think what ends up happening is that so I'll move this to week 5, so it'll be Sunday 6th and 7th, what, the 13th, or is it the 16th? The 13th. It's the third Sunday, the 13th, Sunday, February 13th, 2022, at midnight now. And I think what I'm going to do going forward is, because this is not the first time I've had this surprise, and don't get me wrong, it's not a bad surprise that you guys don't know. A lot of you don't know you're from other places or you're from software engineering, but it is a surprise. It's like, oh, there's not that many people that know. So so that's okay, but it's kind of the second time this has happened. And I've been in the same boat before, and I think that what I'm going to do is move these dates off going forward permanently. So I think it just gives everyone a bit more time, and I think it'll still make it so that you guys are happy. All right, so that is the option. So the 13th, yes, I think that is what it says. No, let's make sure that I did it right. So February 13th, yep. March 4th will be the next date for part 3, and I think that should give you enough time. Are you okay with that, Joshua? Maria says she's okay with that. And you say that that should be doable. Okay, good. I got that. All right, good. Excellent. All right, so that's the administration part done. I don't want, again, to kill everybody. That's not the intention here. And I know that teams are also going through some changes. Oh, on that, and I got to mention this as well. What if you're having a terrible time at this point with a team member, or you are a team member that can't stay in your group and you want to leave? Again, at this point, because we don't have our part 2 due this Sunday, it's not due till next Sunday. I think there's time for we can shift the teams around, you know, and there is some room, because if I look at the group list, let's take a look at the group list for a second. You know, we have teams that are full, right? Most of them are full, but that doesn't mean that you guys can't move around. Teams of 1 like this are not allowed. So if you were someone who submitted that on your own, you get a 0. Right? So that means we have to do something for this one lonely guy or girl. What happened to them? You know, how did they actually, you know, kind of, you know, collect into a team of 1? Which means I need to make an exception from one of the teams so we can stick this person in some place where they can assist. And I don't want to make it so that it's undoable, or again, it's not fair. So there's one person that one of you are going to get to make sure that we go up the scale. And that means that your teams, to be fair with everybody else, and I got to be fair here, guys. If I'm allowing a team to go to as high as 7, then I'm going to allow every team to go as high as 7, which means you might be able to readjust your team. It's impossible for you guys to do assignments alone. That's why I'm not going to allow that to happen. So if you're a group 5 and you're alone, then I'm just going to take you out of there, and I'll attach you randomly to a team. And when I do so, I also send a note out to the teams and saying, by the way, here's your new member. I'm sorry about this, but we're all students, and everyone needs to have a team. All right, so that's what's going to happen. I will adjust this, the group numbers to 7. So again, for those people who had some issues, please stick around, and we'll talk about making adjustments and swaps for the end of this, for the end of today. Again, just as an administration piece. And we've eaten up some time for our Blender, but that's okay, because these are important parts of our course as well. Any questions before we move on? Because I wanted to cover all this stuff to make sure that everyone was good. Jerome says no. All right. All right, let's move on, guys. So where last we left off, I'm just going to bring up, you know, Blender. So please do this with me. So I'm going to open up as administrator. I recommend that because it just opens quicker. Where last we left off with Blender, we made a little robot, and we made a little reference diagram for what that looks like. Okay, so we can make a reference diagram, or we can get a reference diagram. Let's see if we can find a good reference diagram for an archway. So again, if I was going to look at something like archway, what does that look like? And if I was going to look at images just like this, you can see that there are several different archways that we can use to create, right? And the reason why I'm going to get this first, this archway, is to really get a sense of how to put it together. And my view is we should probably put something together that looks like this, okay? Something that looks like this is probably, you know, pretty straightforward and all this kind of stuff. Now, here's a problem with this thing. And let me ask you this then. So I'm just looking at this random archway here, and I'm going to talk about this with you guys. Do you think this is a reasonable reference? What are your thoughts? So check mark if you think this is a good reference to make an archway, X if you think it's not a good reference, right? And what are your thoughts around that? So I see some X's. I see Michael says no. Peter's also no. And we also have Tatiana who's also saying no. So guys, why are you thinking that this is not a great archway as a reference? The people that said no. Michael says, it seems like because it comes to a point instead of a smooth arch, it would be difficult. Burkhardt says too complex. Too complex. Okay.
It's better to have a front view and side view.
Ah, there we go. That's what I was looking for, Tatiana. Thank you. It's better to have all the views, right? So let's see if we can pull that down. And by the way, you guys can also share if you find it for me. I'll take one of your arches. So we have some examples here, right, of some front views. So, you know, again, and we can also make a better search. So we can say something like front and side views archway. Let's see if we get anything like that, right? So we can get a front and side of an archway, right? Now this is kind of interesting. It's more of an Asian type of archway where you have a front view, a side view, and a 3/4 view. By the way, guys, 3/4 views are very common when it comes to stuff to give you a sense of what the thing looks like before you build it. So this is the back view. So see how it's exactly like the front view. So this kind of idea is really neat, and it's not a bad thing to do. Building an Asian type archway is not what I was thinking. I was thinking more of a classical European type, but it doesn't mean that we can't build this. I would recommend that this is probably a little bit more challenging to build because of this and this, right? Because it's kind of more curved. Doesn't mean that it's bad. The key idea is not so bad either, but they can take quite a long time to build. So what about anyone else? Does anyone have anyone else that has an archway that at least has a front view, right? By the way, we can use an actual diagram, like an image, or we can guess at what it's going to look like as well. Here's another one, a front view, and here's a side view. So more of an archway, but it looks like a wooden type column as well, right? So you might be able to find something. We can also create it. Okay, so that's another thing. But you know, the idea is maybe we can find something that someone made, right? And we can also be more specific when it comes to what we're looking for. So in other words, front and side views of stone archway. All right, see if we get anything that way. And sometimes we might be able to get something that's a little bit better than what we've seen. This isn't bad. We can probably do something like this. And remember that the other thing to think about when we're building in Blender to be strategic when it comes to building things in Blender is what about our textures? What do we get from a texture perspective before we build a thing? If we're going to apply some kind of texture, then let's take a look at that too, just to give us a sense of what we want to do. So again, if I go to textures.com and I start looking at that, and I want to look at, so there's doors, and now we're seeing some stuff where they already have this. So here's medieval doors, which is neat, okay? And you can see this one. Now we're not planning to build a door. The door could be something we do another day, but this is kind of neat, right? That we have this archway that we can plan, almost like bricks that already apply. And what a texture does for us, it can make our job a whole pile easier than us making our own textures as well. So this is an option, again, something we may not decide to exercise, but you can see that there are many different things here, and you might be able to find something that's here as well. So if I look for archway, you know, as an example, maybe we'll come up with something that is reasonable, and they have 99 textures like that that look like this. That's not bad. I like this one, but again, look at this background. You get a background too, which is not what we're looking for, but the textures for the archway are pretty good. That is almost usable, this one. Look at this. We could probably do something like this, right? If we were going to do it. So this is another way to do it. Like say, okay, I've got a texture. I need to do some manipulation to make this work, but it's not terrible to make it work. We could do that. We could also make our own. So for example, if I wanted to apply a texture like this on an object, that's cool. But remember, we have to apply it from different sides, not just from the front. So just some ideas about how to do certain things to make archways. And there's lots of different ones with different styles here. So texture.com is another thing. And then if you're going to do something from scratch, like for example, okay, so what material am I going to make it? Am I going to make it out of marble, right? So what is the marble going to look like? Is it going to be granite? You know, as an example, is it going to have this kind of surface? Am I going to make something with bricks like we did before? So something like cinder blocks. Is that what it's going to look like? Something that looks like this. And so these are all choices for us, and it'll affect our build. It'll affect the way we look. So I'm thinking about medieval, which is something like that looks like this. And we got to be, we got to think about what we've already done. We kind of used something that looks like this before when we made our pillar, right? So kind of the pillar idea was good. We have some options. So if I was going to do something like this the entire way, so this for the archway itself, let's see what options we have for this one. So we can probably use a pattern like this for the sides and maybe something else for the top. So this is kind of cool as an example, and I don't think it's a bad idea for a mixed size texture. Now the challenges with this, even though it is seamless, which means that this piece here and this piece over here connect. Look at that. So what I mean by that is if you actually look at the this thing here on the right, see the area on the right there, you can clearly see that it connects with the area on the left. That's what seamless means. Same thing with the bottom and the top. It kind of either stops or connects. That's what it does. So that's why it's called seamless. You can use this as ground tiles, or you can use this as a tile for the archway. And I think this is an option. Okay. What are your thoughts, guys? We can just apply a brick texture. Okay, no problem. Also remember with the angle, if we make an arch that is rounded like this, so if I go back to front and side views of an arch like this, then then that will be something that we have to think about as well. All right, how do we apply the texture to those areas compared to something that's round? We can also make our own textures, and that's something we can think about. So, so if I just looked at stone archway, right? And you can see some examples, even if it's head on. This is nice. That'd be awesome as an example, but it'd be really great if we had a side view. Again, this is not terrible. And the reason why this thing isn't terrible is because you can probably make each of these bricks kind of fall on top of each other. And, each one of these things could have its own texture. So believe it or not, it looks more complex than it is, but still, let's not go there for today. This isn't a bad idea, this idea of columns and an archway behind, but it would be nice if we could do an all-in-one, so we don't have to do separate archway with columns. So that's nice as an example. There's another view of that same thing. And you might be able to find something that is reasonable where they have different sides, side view and so on. And again, there's your 3D model that we started with at the beginning. Some people said that it's too complex, right? And there's another one that's kind of right from the front view. So worst case scenario, we can probably figure out the sides, even if you don't have one of something that looks like this, but we want to try and get as much of a front view as possible. So example, something like this, again, we can probably do something like this with a keystone. This is the keystone up here, right? But how do we do this? Well, we're going to mirror it, obviously. So we're going to do this. We're going to get to this point. We're going to mirror, and then we should see how this works. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now I'd like to build something that looks like this. This is kind of something that we want. So a stone archway with columns. Let's see if we can do this. So stone archway with columns. All right. Let's see if there's something that way that looks a little bit kind of like that one, right? So there's another one that we can use. That's kind of a front view in terms of how it can work. This part here might be a little bit challenging to pull off, but you can see a lot of these have been created for us. And there's one that's kind of doable more than the others. Again, think about this as a pillar, right? This could also be smooth, and we can just use a different material here compared to the materials that are up here. So those are the things that we can think about as we move forward. And again, we're not going to make it exact because we're gonna modify it. But this is a good one to start with. So let's take this one and let's see if we can use this one. So Michael has another one. Let's see if I can use another one that Michael suggests. And that's not bad. That's not bad. So there's your side view, and there's your right view and left view. It would be nice, Michael, if we had one that was the front view. That's the one that's missing. But this isn't bad. Like, this is okay, right? Okay. Yep, I'm not sure what you're typing there, but I'm not sure if it's for me. So, yeah, so this is not bad because I guess we get the side, we get a sense of this, and we get this one in the right view and left view, which is kind of like the front view. So we have a sense of how this works. This is not terrible to use as well. So again, guys, you choose whichever one you want. This is more of a wooden archway. I want to make a stone archway. So which is what we're seeing here. So I'm going to give you this one, and this is the one we're going to use today. I think that might be easier than this one because of the complexity. And what we'll do is for ours, we'll keep these stones the same size. All right, so we won't do different keystones that look like this. At least not for now. We could do this. It's not terrible, actually. We could probably do this. And what about the details here? Would I make these bumps and all this kind of stuff here? We need to do some of it, like on the bottom. This is where the most complex pieces are going to be for here and here. And then we can decide what to do for this part. Okay? All right, so let's do that one. So I'm going to copy that image and save image as. We'll call this the reference. We don't have the side, but we know that the pillar is kind of the same on the whole way. And these bricks are just going to be, something that's pretty much easy to figure out on this side. All right. So it's not terrible, this one. That's why an archway is somewhat doable compared to the other ones. So this is like our archway, we'll call it reference. All right. So we'll put that inside of, I'll upload this one so you can use it as well up on eCentennial. Okay, so let's go there. And I'm showing you the process so that way you can figure out how do you do things on your own as well. So up on live session 4, I'm just going to position that archway that you guys can use the same one as me. Okay, so please go there. Michael says, yes, I mostly sent that one because a wood texture would be easier to apply. Agreed, Michael. And I think if you want to do a wood one for yours, I'm totally happy with whatever material looks good for you guys. Guys, I'm giving you some latitude for this one. I'm going to do it my way, but if you wanted to use another reference diagram, if you feel confident to do that, I'm fine with that. All right, so this is something that I want to do now. And here's something that we got to think about too. If I want to make a reference diagram and I wanted to put it into our three-dimensional space, there's some ways we can do that, right? One of the ways is to use an image plane, and put it inside of here as well, right? So if I was to talk about image plane, right, there isn't really an image plane that comes off the top, right? It's not something that's something you can do by itself, but we're going to start with that as well. So let's get rid of our cube. So again, we're just going to get rid of it, delete the cube. We're going to start from the front view, right, as an example. So here's the front view, and I'm starting from it in orthographic view. I'm going to hide the camera and the light because we're not using that for lighting and whatever. And we're inside of our layout mode. That's where we're going to start off with. I'm going to add in a plane. So let's add in a plane. Okay, and we're going to rotate it across the x-axis 90 degrees so we can see it, right? So the plane would look something like this. This is the plane. And before I scale it up, what I want to do is I want to load in that image so we can use it as a backdrop so it can help us build something more accurately. All right, so again, the plane itself, if I look at the right, there is a material. Let's add a new material. So we'll call this the reference image. Okay, we're not going to export this thing. This is just for us. All right, it's just a reference image we can see. And then on the right, we can add in a new texture slot. We're going to open the texture slot that we just loaded in. So that would be inside of your downloads or wherever you put it, right? Mine is going to be the Archway reference. That's what it's going to look like. We can open that up, right? And what we don't want is we don't want the Archway reference to be repeatable. We only want it to make it work once. So there's a single image that we're going to apply here as an example. Okay, so that's something we want to do. And then just like normal, we're going to go back to our material, and we're going to go to our base color, and we're going to click on this little button here, and we're going to select our image texture that we're going to apply on top of it. All right, so image texture that we're going to choose, which is the archway, and we can't see it until we turn it on. There it is. Okay, pretty simple. So now you can see that the archway is visible on both sides. And if you don't know which way you're playing, I rotated the plane 90 degrees, remember? And how about which way is the normals? Because we had a problem with the normals on Friday when I did it with the other class. How do we do that? Remember that we can find the normals if we go into edit mode. And if I turn this on, you can see what this thing is looking at. Normals mean the direction that the object is placing, and the back face would be culled or hidden. Back face culling means that we don't want to draw one of the faces. To me, this looks like the front, but let's make sure. So when we go to this option right here at the top, at the bottom, you can see that there is a normals button, display normals. We can turn that on, right? And if you notice, right, the normal gets displayed on this side, but not on the back side, okay? And you can make this color, because the color is the same as the green color, the great thing about normals is you can make it as long as you like. So you can clearly see that that is the way it is. And you can always just adjust the position of the image so you can see where the normal is. So the normal kind of sticks out in front. So this is the front of the diagram. Normals are great because it also tells us that we have things working the way they should work, right? So that's kind of like what the normal looks like. And we can turn those off. We can use those to make sure that we have things going in the right direction. That's something that we can use as a tool. And again, you get that only in edit mode, all right? Only in edit mode and only by pulling this down to here. Otherwise, you won't see it. All right, so let's go back into layout mode for a second. So we have our diagram now. We're going to go into front view. And I want to put the diagram, make it big enough, because this right now is only 2 meters. And we got to figure out how big this is going to be. And in our game right now, what we have is, something that looks like this big. These columns, and I've been to some places in the world that have those columns, and I was going to share that with you. So I went to this place called Sunyon in Greece, right, which is an amazing place. And this is what it actually looks like. So these are actual columns in real life, right? So no one's making this up. Let's see if we can get this. So here it is. This is the Temple of Poseidon, and I was there. And these columns, guys, I came up basically to about here. That's how it is. And if you want to see that, relative to how big these are, they're huge. So for example, like these are like 2, I would say 4, maybe 10 meters high. These columns, like they're really, really high. And you can always look at that too. You can make kind of do a search and say, how tall, how, kind of high are the columns, Acropolis, and look it up just to get a sizing, because we never did that. And it says, look, the Acropolis was 29 meters long, and they say Doric columns measure about 1.9 meters, 6.2 feet in diameter, and are 10 meters, 34 feet high, which is kind of what we're looking at. So 10 meters high, just to give you a sense of that, right? They are a little distorted for sure. But the idea is we're just going to use this as a reference, right? So let's move this up so that the bottom of the column is kind of here, right? As an example, kind of at the bottom here. Now, one of the challenges we have here, because this is an actual image, is we would like to have this image be transparent, because at the end of the day, if we don't, we won't be able to look through it and there'll be issues. So again, from a transparency perspective, right, what we want to be able to do is instead of our mode being opaque, right, we definitely want to be able to do an alpha blend, okay? We definitely want to turn that on for our object, but not enough so that it kills our object. So be careful. We want to be able to see through our object. And what this does when I add in, let's say, a cube in the future, let's kind of add that cube in and put it behind the object, be able to see the object, right? So you want to be able to see that cube kind of through, right? And the other thing the reason why you want to do that is because, if I just drag this object through, we're going to be working with something like this through the entire time, right? Now, the other way to do it is to take this image and pull it into, this is not a transparent image, And you can pull it into another program like Fireworks or something else and remove the background to make it more realistic. For us, we're not going to always use it. We're just going to use it as scale and just give us a sense of how big it's supposed to be. And we're going to try and match it as much as possible. So yeah, you're right. The proportions are a little distorted, but we're going to use it. And not all references are great, unfortunately. All right, so just to give you a sense of that. So let's get rid of that cube. So yeah, so when I click my plane, and we're just going to call this reference, so we can get rid of it here as an example. Then we can start thinking about the how much alpha transparency we're going to have, right? So again, remember that what we want to do is it's 100% alpha. If I turn the alpha down, right, then it'll be more and more transparent. Guys, you want to make it something like 20% max, because you want to be able to see right through the image so that you can adjust your columns. We know that this is 2 meters high. We know that this is 2 meters high, and we want to make this as much as possible. And I'm just going to use the n here to move it up exactly 0.5, right, meters. So it's, even though it's not exactly on the ground, who cares? We're going to make it so that it goes up. It'd be nice if we had it right here. That's what it'd be nice to have, but we can't do that. So let's multiply this by 5, right? Because really it's 10 meters high, and right now it's 2 meters high. So we want to say that the height is 10 meters, and so is the width, right? Because 10 meters by 10 meters is the dimensions right now. So that's kind of how it is, right? But like we said, the dimensions width-wise, because when we look at the original image that was here, notice that it's narrower than it is taller. This has been stretched to fill this side, and we can kind of go down. Instead of 10 meters, we can work it out so that it's not quite like this, right? But the idea is that, and this is in the middle of our screen. So if you notice, we'd have to move it up so that this would be about here. Okay, so let's say 2.5 meters high is what we're looking at right now. And it's not quite 10 meters because we're losing the top and we're losing a bit of the bottom. So I would say that there's about a meter lost on the top, right? Maybe 1.5 meters. So let's make it even taller. So let's make it like 11.5 meters tall. Okay, oops, wrong one. 11.5 meters tall. Okay, that's kind of how it's going to be. Notice now that the bottom, it's there, and the top will go all the way to there, not to there. And to make that go, right, because we want to make this go all the way to 10, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right here, this is the top. So we don't care about this part, we care about this part. Look at that. Okay, so my numbers are so far 10, 11.5, and 0. And then what I want to do here is I want to scrunch it up a little bit because it's too wide, right? I would say we could probably move it in a little bit more. So again, I'm going to scale it. I'm going to use scaling only across the x-axis. I'm just going to move it in just a touch, like let's say to there. So where this right column is right at the 2 meter mark, like this. Okay, that's where I'm thinking. Are you with me? Check mark if you're with me, X if you don't agree or you think it should be something else. Again, we're going slow here because I want you guys to get a sense of how to use a reference diagram, to build something, a model, whatever. There's lots of ways, by the way. This is not the only way. And I'm sure, did you guys cover reference diagrams, Tatiana, or anybody else in your COMP397? I'm not sure if you did or what they covered for you.
Yes, we did.
Excellent. So this is just review then for you guys. Thank you. Right. All right, so cool. So now that we have this diagram, this is nice, but I want to not touch it. This is not the diagram I want to work with as an example, right? I don't want to work with this thing. I want to work with another thing, and I want to keep this thing in the background, right? So this is something that I want to, not touch anymore. So I'm going to make another object, and we got to think about how I'm going to make this. I'm going to mirror what we're doing, right? So it makes sense that we turn on the mirror modifier when we add things in the first place. And what we're going to start with, I recommend we're going to start with the columns first and then do the bricks after. Okay, that's what I recommend. So let's start with that first. Okay, so the columns first, and we'll make them literally just cylinders for now, just to start off. Okay, so let's add a new object. So again, we'll deselect all. We'll add a new object here into the main space, and we'll add in a mesh column. Okay, so a cylinder. And now let's think about the cylinder. How complex do we want the cylinder to be? Right now we have 32 vertices that are in here. So now let's take a look at some of the complexities of the column. We have probably something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say 8. So we can probably get away with making this thing about 16 vertices, something that looks like this. Okay, so something that's less complex than what we saw up here. Okay, 16 vertices. The more vertices you add, the smoother it's going to look, but we don't care about smooth because we're going to make it work with what it is. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So 16 by 1. And let's, first things first, what I want to do is I want to move the column into place. So again, let's go into orthographic mode before we do anything. We're not even in edit mode right now. We're just in orthographic mode. Let's move that column into place, right, as an example. And let's go into X-ray mode. So there's an X-ray mode that's here at the top that allows me to, to see it. And X-ray mode allows me to potentially look through, right? The other way to do it is this way, but once we go into this mode, you can see that we won't be able to see the columns as an example because you'll lose your reference. That's a problem, right? So again, we're right in here inside the column and we're in this mode. Obviously, we're too wide, right? We're too wide for this part. And I'm going to start somewhere around right here. I'm just going to narrow this down first. So again, I'm going to scale across the x-axis just to match the column so that you can see that's what it's going to look like. And guys, even if it's not purely accurate, I don't care. It's just we're going to start with this. But before we move into another step, before I take another step, now that I got this column into place, right? And you can see that that's not correct, right? We want to make sure that the dimensions on the y-axis over here, this way, are the same as this one. So 0.86 is what I'm looking at right now. There we go. So now we can see that it's like looking like a column, right? Okay, there we go. So that's where the column's going to be. And again, if you want to make this little hump, you can do that. If you wanted to do that, then we would go into edit mode for this. So again, I'm going to move into edit mode, modeling mode, right? And zoom out. We can still see this thing, which is good. And the reason why I can still see this thing is I moved into viewport shading, which is something that I want to do, right? And so that's something that I want to turn on. We definitely want to turn on X-ray mode so we can look through it, right? And if I was to type this, like to actually go into X-ray mode, like so instead of I change my viewport shading to this as an example, that would be pretty bad. So we're just going to stay in this mode. So let's suppose I want to do that now. What I can do is I can grab the top vertices here, just those top ones, shift back into this viewport shading, and then scroll down so I can kind of hit this part right here. Good. Now that I've got, if I'm going to do this part, that's fine, I can do it. But now that I'm going to do this part here, then what I want to do is start the mirroring modifier. So again, you can add the mirror modifier anywhere, but you can only apply it during object mode, right? So again, I'm going to go into mirror. Here's the mirror. And notice that the mirror, right, that I'm adding in, where is the mirror, right? Because if I look at the front mode, this is front mode, right? And if I go back into layout, just to show you that, where's the mirror? How come it's not there, right? Well, because we put this thing in place, right? I'm just going to show you this, right? So here's the mirror. Here's the mirror modifier. You can add the mirror or try to add the mirror anywhere you want. So look, so here's the way it works. There's the mirror. And, but the reason why it's not in place, let's just remove it, is because we didn't start it off in the middle. So if we were going to move the position of the object on the x-axis, let's move that back to the middle for a second, right? And now let's add the mirror and see what the difference is by doing this, right? So remember, the mirror modifier means we want something on the right, same as on the left, right? So if I was to add a mirror here, does it make a difference? Remember, I would chop things in half typically, right? That's how we did it last time. So we add the mirror modifier here in edit in object mode, right? And then going into edit mode, if I was to pull this thing over, now look at that. So you can see that that is the way it goes. And what I want to do is, in fact, select all and then move that over and see what happens. Oh, now I get something that is both on both sides, right? Which is what I want to do. Notice how the bottom doesn't quite cover, but this is not bad in terms of on the left, it's drawn proportionally because both sides are covering, right? Again, we can always go into this mode, deselect, select the bottom, right? And then go back into the shaded mode again. And then what you want to do is on the bottom, you want to kind of scale across the x-axis just a little bit so we can start thinking about where it would start, something that would start like, and I'm flaring it out here a little bit just across the x-axis so that it has that shape. We can always move in a little bit more, and so we can get closer to our shape that we want, right? Just a little bit. Okay, there we go. And then what you can do is you can start thinking about how we're going to produce this cap at the top, right? So this is the cap that I want to do. And by the way, if I move back into edit, object mode for a second, let's do that. And let's take a look, right? The top is capped, by the way, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're moving in this way or this way, but the top is capped, and so is the bottom, right? We're going to remove them. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift into face select mode and select the top face and just remove it. And same thing with the bottom face, because I'm just going to select the bottom face here and remove that. So that way it's removed, and then I can do some expansion up here. All right, cool. So then what do I do to make this one work? Well, I can do a series of extrusions, right, to do this part, right? So the first part is, let's get a reference to all these. So again, I'm going to go into vertex select mode, and I'm going to select just the top vertices. Again, there's a couple ways to do them. You could do them through X-ray or something like that, or you can just expose them. There's not a lot of them, so we can see that that is the way it's done. And then if I extrude, I want to only extrude across the Z-axis, and then press Enter. And then what you want to do is you want to pull that up. So now you see that there are a second set of vertices there. Okay, second set of verts. Right, I'm using mirror mode, that's why I can see through them. Look, right, so I can still see through the verts without being in and without mirroring, which is pretty cool. And so if I deselect all and then select all with my box select mode, it even grabs the back ones, even though I'm still in solid mode, right? Again, I'm going to look at it from the front for a second just to get a better thing, and what I'm going to better view, more controlled view, and I'm going to extrude. So press E and then press Enter. And then what I want to do is I want to extrude. I want to scale across for now, just the x-axis, so this way. So extrude, scale across. If I do it this way, it scales in both ways, both dimensions, right? So if I showed you what that looked like, it looks like this, which isn't terrible, actually. So again,
I have a suggestion.
tell me, yeah.
We can do the height of the column until the top, and then use cut loop.
Cut loop and slide.
Make these circles in these points, and
Sure.
then select faces and extrude faces.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, that's a great.
It will be easier.
Sure, I can do that too. Yeah, that's actually a very good suggestion. Especially, I was going to do it step by step just to show how you do that, but that's fine too. So if you do that, you just have to grab the top faces and just go up, and you're going to go right to the top is what we're looking at, and we're going to just narrow it down. So scale across the x-axis for now, and then we'll mirror what it's on the y-axis. So something that looks like this, right? But again, if we look at what that looks like from a scaling perspective, my modeling mode I am, then it's kind of odd on one, but not on the other one. So notice like the scale for my item itself, right? And what the level of scaling is. Here's my resize down the left. You can see that the resize level for the scale on the X at the top here is 0.843, but the Y is 1. Let's change that to 0.843 as well, just so that it's proportional, 0.843. Yeah, we're getting closer. Thank you, Tatiana, for that suggestion. I like the loop cut and slide idea for sure. And I would probably do it so that I would do the loop cut and slide now and not do the square parts yet. But everyone is different that way. And like you said, there's a little bit of skewing and it's not quite the best reference. So, but let's do a loop cut and slide now. So again, you can do a Control R. Remember we did that last day where you can kind of do a loop cut and slide depending on where it is. So we'll do a loop cut and slide there, slide that into place. And we'll do another one, loop cut and slide there and slide that into place. Right, so there's your top and the bottom. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll do a loop cut and slide. Let's do all the loop cut and slides first. Tie that into place and a loop cut and slide and tie that into place. Oops, let's do that the other way around. We mean over here. There we go. Look closer. Pretty good there. I think it's okay. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. We're doing a column and it's the way we're doing it, right? So we're good to go. Okay. Nice. We got our columns. Now let's make it a little wider. And so that we can do the other way around too. So again, because we're in X-ray mode, when I do my box select mode, first make sure you're deselected everything. You can select only the areas that you want to select, this one. Then you can do that extrude that I said. So extrude and then press enter. And if I scale, right, then you can see that it's going to scale both sides on the top. Right, so not bad. It's okay, it's not perfect. Again, it's going to be our little column. It might not be the perfect column forever, but it's going to be a nice one. Okay, and the same, we'll deselect all. And then again, I'll use the X-ray mode. Again, I'm using this X-ray mode here. That's how I'm able to see that. And just select all those ones. And again, we can just go extrude, enter, scale. So it's bigger. And there we go. Okay. And that's that first part of the column. Are you with me? Check mark if you're with me. Check or X if you're not. We're getting closer. So I got 5, 6 of you, 7, 8. And again, guys, don't panic if your column isn't going to look like mine. Michael, if you want to make yours totally different than what we're doing because you chose a wood texture, then you could extrude things slightly differently than me. All right, how about, so since Tatiana had such great ideas, Tatiana, what about the bottom over here? What do you recommend for the bottom part? So these ones. What do you recommend? Would you do it the same way? Would you go all the way to the bottom and then extrude that way?
This bottom, the round,
it's all round.
We can do the same.
It's all round. Well, the bottom isn't. The bottom is square. But this up to here, we can do the same, right? So, but however, we don't have to worry about it. Even if we did this part, we can still do this part, right? We're still not dead, in other words. So we go to the front, and we're going to extrude this one all the way down. In fact, all we have to do is just pull this from here down straight. And we can go all the way down probably to here, right? Because we're going to make these look like this when we do it. Now the challenge. I recommend that you don't change the size of anything else right now, but rather loop cut and slide to where you have to do that stuff. So again, what you do is you do a loop cut and slide. So Control R, right? Bring it down to where you think the areas are, right? Then we can make adjustments afterwards. Loop cut and slide in here. So you can make that part there, right? And again, loop cut and slide in there. We're going to get closer too, because that makes sense. So something that looks like this. And then again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, you can make as many of these divisions as possible. I think I'm going to stop there myself. Now, lots of ways you can approach this problem. So you could just expand the stuff that you need, right? And because again, this is not kind of a sticking out thing, you could do it that way as well. These are kind of a graded area, or what we like to call a beveled area, right? So again, what you could do is you could select all this area here and just scale it so that it is, you know, kind of all the way here. Don't worry about what it looks like right now. And you can see that you can even add another one in the middle because it looks like there's one here and maybe one there. It's not perfect, but who cares? So there's that one. And we can also deselect all. So select it, right? And deselect all and just select that one that we need, which is this one. Right, that's the one. And then just scale that one out too. So we can kind of scale that out. And the same thing goes with this. We can scale this part out. You know, so let's do that first. So deselect all, scale this part out. So let's grab that one, scale it out. Again, it may not be perfect, and you have to kind of see if you like it or not. I personally think we need another cut to scale back in, or two. So I think this might be okay, but maybe we want to bring this down a bit. Right, something like this, and scale it out a little bit more. There we go. And then add another one kind of in the middle somewhere. Maybe move it somewhere in here, I think. Oops. And then scale it in more, something like that. And then maybe another one over here. You can add as many of them as you want. And what that'll do is it'll give you the shape that you want slowly, slowly. And the same thing goes with the ones that you see. So that way you can get the shapes that you need, you know, as we go. And if you don't, I mean, this is pretty drastic, but you see what I'm saying, right? So that's Control R. Anybody have any trouble with any of this stuff, please, let's talk about it, because all I'm doing is literally just, you know, sliding, loop, cut, slide, loop, cut, slide. I think that's pretty good. I'm not going to go much more detailed than that, because again, we're going to apply some kind of material to that as well, right? So what do you think, guys? Not bad? All right, so now that we're at the top, we need to finally make something happen with this. And this is kind of where you have to think about how you're going to connect stuff, right? And there are several ways to do it, right? We could add a box at the top, because basically these are all boxes and that's how it's going to go. I think that's what I want to do, kind of add in a box at the top, and I want to add a box at the bottom, and then somehow we can connect these vertices. The vertices are the challenging part. So let's add the box first. Now, well, we're going to add it to the middle because we want it to duplicate. But first, let's save Blender because we've got our columns done. So save, and I'm just going to go. I'm going to save it somewhere. We're going to call this the Archway Stone Archway dot blend. Save, and let's just zoom in. I don't get to this part here until we're completely this way. And I want to put this thing right there. So let's add a new shape. Now we have to be in edit mode for this. Add a new shape. We'll add a cube. It's pretty big. That's okay. We're going to move this shape over here, which is going to be duplicated. And we're going to scale this down. So let's move it down to here, where I want the cube to go. Something like this. And then let's scale it down across the axis by just doing one of these and moving it up. So something that looks like this. It's a different object though, right? It's not connected to the other one. So even though it's a cylinder, inside the cylinder, you know, you have one thing. Be careful about it because, again, I'll talk about different objects, that these are all connected. These are not connected to these ones. So I'll talk about how to do that, right? So, so that's the first part. And we want to scale both the right side and the left side. So again, if I look at it from the front, let's scale the right side first and move it in until we can see it. And I think we can even come in on the left. This one's kind of right near the left side here. I think I want to give it a little bit of a lip. I know that's outside of our diagram, but it's kind of more proportional this way. And I think I want to bring it up a little bit more from where it's at. Let's see. Yep. All right, cool. So that's our box, but it looks really big on the sides. And I think what I want to do is just move to the side view for a second. So on the side view, you can't see, we don't have a side view, but we're going to bring it in so it's proportional like we saw it. So I'm going to kind of select both the this side and this side, and then just bring it in. Remember, there's only like not a lot of geometry here, right? So across the y-axis, we're going to bring that in a little bit. So it's going to come into about right there, that first block, that first little grid line, right? And let's see what that looks like. I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Question for everybody here. So now that we have this, we have two different objects. In terms of, for the people who've done this before, should we leave it like this? Or should we somehow connect it like we did before? And how would we do such a thing, right? What are your thoughts? Well, first, I wouldn't do it now if I was going to do it at all, right? But we could remove the face, this face right here, and we could subdivide this one, and then make connections and make faces. That's what I'm going to do, okay, when I make this face. But I like this little brick, and it's going to be a good reference brick, so let's duplicate it. So again, going up from the front, we can see that we have this part of the arch, and I want to put a brick that's here to start us going up there. So let's do that. At the top, we'll have the same brick. Again, it'll be slightly different than the reference drawing, but better than what we would have had otherwise. So again, Shift D to duplicate around, and again, I want to move it on the Z-axis, right? You can see that I can bring that brick right to the top and move right in there, so it's kind of at the top of the area. We clearly can see that this is too wide, but at least we have the same proportions that we had before. I'm going to bring it pretty close so we can see that it's kind of touching. And I want to grab the right side and the left side and bring it in. So again, right side first, then followed by left side, right? And what I want to do is I want to scale it in across the x-axis. And we'll do it on the other side as well. So something that looks like, my thinking is something that looks like this. Might be okay. Again, it can't be, it's a little skewed on the top. So we have to be very careful on how we do it, and we want to keep it as proportional as possible. So it's either going to be there or there. All right, that's what I think it should be. But it's really up to you. You might want to go a little bit narrower, like something like that. Let's look at it from the side. We can clearly see that that's too big. So this is the front. The front shows us that we have like 1.5 or maybe 2. We should probably do the same thing from the side. So here's the side. Let's scale across the y-axis. And so we bring that in as well. Something like that. And then we should check it. So what does that look like? It looks pretty good around that side. Okay. Are you with me, guys? Or do you have something like this for your columns? So let me just clear the feedback. Check mark if you're with me so far, X if you're far away and you don't know how to do stuff that I've done. Okay, closer. Again, this should not be oppressive. If you feel oppressed doing this work, don't be. It's not like a crazy amount of work here, and it's low poly again. We're trying to go as low poly as possible. All right, now the trick. How do we expand, right, from one brick to the other? And there's some things we can do to make this go, right? Well, we're going to leave the connections. So I'm not going to make the connections here yet. I'm going to do that after as an after thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect all, and I'm going to go shift into face select mode. And this face here, the middle face, is what I'm looking at. This middle face here, right? Now, I'm just going to say this, right? There's a couple ways to do this. We can extrude the face, right, which is not a negative thing, all right? So we can kind of move this up. And what we can do is when we move the face up, right, we can kind of do what we did earlier, which is we could, kind of ratchet up to this area here. And then from there, we can just extrude from here. So we've got an extrusion, right? And then we can angle it. So here, before we do this, we can select all, we can switch to uh, vertex select mode, select only these vertices. Again, all I did was extrude up right from here. Remember, we can always go back and fix this. Like maybe we don't like this. Maybe we want part of it to be thinner or whatever. And if you don't like it, change it now. Like if you wanted to have another part that was wider like this, and then you can do that, right? So example, you can extrude up and then expand, right? So to make it more of a base. So you can extrude, you want to move that up a little bit. And then what you want to do is, as you look at where that is, let's move that part, let's say up to that point there. And then maybe we make that whole thing an expansion. Now to do that is not that bad, right? So again, vertex select mode is what I would do. And I would deselect all, select only these vertices on the top by keeping the vertices at the bottom unselected. And then I would extrude and then enter and then expand just like normal. So that we do something like this. Okay, so kind of if you want to do that, that's fine. And that kind of keeps all the connections and it's not so bad. All right, I think that's pretty good. And then you can do the same thing as before, but extrude in as opposed to extruding out. So if you wanted to do that, you can make another little piece there. So extrude in, then another one and another one until you get up. And that's not a bad way of doing it. So again, going back to face select mode, select the face you want to extrude. Just make sure it's that one. That one. And then once you do that, you can do the same thing. So you can say extrude, right? You want to extrude out the exact amount, right? And then you want to kind of deselect all, select your faces, and then come inbound. So you can extrude and then enter, and then kind of scale in, right? So you're creating this area that's kind of at the top with a bunch of these little bricks, right? To create that effect, again, I'd probably, kind of scale up, make it a bigger one, and I probably would. And now notice it's starting to bend. It's starting to go this way to arch up. So you can do that. So you can say deselect all, select the top, right? Extrude, right? And just take that bend out a little bit more. Deselect all, right? And then select only the object that you want to change, right? And again, if you really are thinking about angling at this point, like let's say just a little bit of an angle, you can do that. You can scale or you can rotate. So you can rotate across the y-axis, which is what I'm going to do anyway, just slightly. So you can kind of meet that rotation. All right, that's all I've done. And then I can extrude, enter, and then I can scale that out. So that way you can scale it just slightly bigger. Make sure that you don't, it might look weird, but you can fix later. There we are. And what I really want is to continue to extrude just like that by taking the faces and extruding. We're not creating additional geometry, which is inside the faces. We're just adding the things that we need. And by the way, it's not perfect, okay? Just letting you know, right? So it's going to be our column. It's not going to be a perfect column, but it is what it is. So again, I'm going to extrude and so let's go back here and select this face and then extrude. I'm going to move that up and maybe more. Let's move that like way up there because I want to start building it faster than this. And then just start rotating. Rotate across the y-axis only. So limit yourself to rotate across the y-axis, right? And remember, we can always do a loop, cut, and slide to give more detail here, or to get in. Like this is obviously too wide, right? So what you could do is, if you want to, you can do a loop, cut, and slide now, right? And just bring that kind of in there, right? Where you can kind of grab the stuff that you want to grab. So here only. And if I wanted to bring this part in, I would just extrude, enter, and then, bring that in where you have some capability, but without I see I grabbed the wrong ones. Let's grab everything because we extruded, but we didn't grab all those. And let me just undo those changes. We'll just do this after. See, this is detail I want to add after anyway. All right, so yeah, so this is pretty good. We're getting up there, and it's going to be like our weird column. That's fine, but we're getting closer to what we want to do. Face select mode. I want to select this face, and you can see where I'm going to go with this, right? So extrude, and it's going to select this way. But what I'm going to do is I want to start tapering the top and angling at the same time. So rotate across the y-axis again. So just so that it kind of meets. And what you could do is you could scale, you know, kind of in a little bit, just to, you know, so it's not as crazy as this. And by the way, if you ever wanted to change these ones here, that's the other thing you could do. You could say, I want to grab all this, right? So let's go and grab all that. This is too wide. We can always adjust these later, where you want to say, grab these vertices and scale them in. So scale that in. So it's kind of more of a, and then same thing with these verts. We can just grab these ones here and just bring them in. So we can move that in.
Again,
What was that?
we could use a cylinder we placed along y-axis and cut half of it.
You absolutely can do that. You can absolutely do that as well. I mean, I'm going to go with this stuff here, but it's totally up to you because I'm going to make bricks that go all the way this way. But it's up to you how you want to do it from this point. Right? So, but you're absolutely right. You could do a lot of different things, different ways of doing the same thing, and it's all about being inventive, right? So, you know how you can do that, right? So again, rotate this way. We can move it this way a little bit. Good thing is we're only moving it around one axis, which is good. We don't want to try and delete this. We can also scale in, so that way it's not so crazy. And we're going to move in again. So expand this way, rotate, move, and move again. I'm moving with G, by the way, the G key, and rotate. And again, we're going to keep going that way. Again, as you can see that the arch is coming together. So expand, rotate, expand, and maybe undo those changes. I don't like that. We can just move it. Good thing is, you know, you can make micro adjustments later, right? So, or if you don't like it, like I know that Tatiana is maybe more particular than I am, and that's perfectly fine. I think she's got the right of it. So. And you can see it's not exactly proportional. See on the left and on the right, the picture, like you said, Tatiana, is a little bit skewed. And we can do whatever we want for this side too, right? So we can kind of expand and move it together. Make sure that it's perfect, as perfect as it's going to go. And we're going to marry it together with the other one, right? So something that looks like this. It's going to be pretty close. Okay. And there's our archway at the top. Again, there's some things we can do to make it less blocky. What they did in the original diagram, remember what we did? They had areas that were, I'm going to leave it like this now. I'm just going to leave and go to layout mode for a second to see what this looks like. This is what our arch looks like, an archway, right? But let's take that reference, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it back a little bit so I can see it, and to give a little bit of a thing. I don't care about the proportions. I want to care about these bricks, which ones they are. So if we move it back just a touch more, so now it's a reference for a different reason, right? Good. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, just so we can see which ones those ones are. Yeah, there we go. So so then when I go into the modeling mode, right, then I can see, it'll indicate to me which ones stick out and which ones don't, right? So again, we can go into face select mode, and how about I go into select the right model? Instead of this one, I'm selecting the wrong model. Let's go back into the cylinder. Let's call this thing the arch, so we know which one it is, right? There's that arch. And again, if I go into modeling mode, then now you can see clearly which ones they are. So it's going to be quite a little bit off. So this is this one is this one. So let's make this one the one that sticks out. All right. So again, I'm going to select this face here. I'm going to extrude and then enter and then extrude into that direction. So kind of make it stick out a little bit more. And maybe something that looks like this. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's not exactly right. And the reason why is because it doesn't look like it's one piece, right? So there's ways around it. And the way, first of all, we want to get rid of this piece as much as possible. So this line and this line, we definitely want to dissolve those lines when we do it, right? And we could probably first start off with a scaling, so scale, so we can make it so that it's as kind of as clear or close as possible. We're going to make some micro adjustments later, but we definitely want to now grab this edge right here, and this edge, right? And I want to dissolve if you can. So where it says dissolve edges, dissolve those two edges as much as possible. So dissolve. And the problem with it is because of there's extra information. We're going to get back here and do it again. And let's just do that again and dissolve edges. There we go. So now you can see that there's one piece that goes like this, right? Looks like one solid piece. If you wanted to do that, you can. You can probably bring these vertices in just a little bit more. So, and let's see how that looks, if it looks bad. And I think it does. But let's go vertex select mode. Just curious how this is going to look. We have to do them one at a time, because this one looks like it's probably okay, but this one not. So let's just do this one now. And let's move this down. So not bad. So my only challenge with breaking it down like this is because of geometry, right? So we'd have to make a connection here. So let's undo those changes. Great thing about that. And let's add those pieces back. We need this piece because otherwise it won't draw properly in Unity. So let's go back to this. So we're going to have a lot of duplication. And what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all the duplicates in a second. And I'll talk about how to do that a little bit as well. So let's do that by eye a little bit here. And again, yours should be, try and make it as, maybe I can move with the G key instead. Bad. It's not bad. It's not perfect, okay, but not bad. So it looks like every other one, and then the keystone. All right, so we'll do the keystone separate, because the keystone is, we're going to make a loop cut and slide over here to make that keystone happen. So this one here too. So control backtick. It's no, face. And we'll say extrude. Take a look and see what that looks like relative to the other one. I'll move that out. And we might as well do this one too and adjust. So this one is a little different because it's the keystone. There's two stones here, right? There's one that kind of goes in the middle. It's a thinner stone. And so what I recommend is we do a loop cut slide this way. And, or maybe we don't do that. Maybe we just make that keystone stand up a little bit more from these vertices at the top. So maybe just align this one and this one, and we'll bring those ones up so that they kind of look on the side. So, and then we can almost get rid of the layering on the top, but let's just see, face this one. I think what I want to do with this one is just extrude this way for both of them. We can kind of marry the two together by, first of all, let's get that middle area here where they're not connected. This needs to be connected. So control backtick, control tab, sorry. Just grab those two verts and bring them closer so that they're pretty much on top. Doesn't have to be perfect because I'm gonna marry them in a different way.
You can turn on the keeping.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that yet. Reason why is because I'm gonna use the other one first, which is just my thinking. Yeah, something that looks like that. But yeah, clipping is definitely not a bad idea. It's kind of a bigger keystone. And that one kind of goes below as well. So I think I might do the same thing with the bottom one. Just again, to keep with the whole theme of everything, right? Just so that way it has a little bit of motion. And this is overlap, got a little bit of overlap happening there, which is okay. Nope. I want just to grab these verts. Again, notice what I'm doing. I'm always, and you might be doing the same thing by now. I'm always going to go check to see how I feel about it. Look at the vertices. I'm using my eye a lot, but we're going to fix it up later on by kind of grabbing these vertices and marrying them together as much as possible. Even if they're not 100% together, we're going to make them go together later. All right, so that's that part. That part doesn't look that bad. This part here looks pretty bad, this part. And again, I probably think we need some loop cut and slides in there as well. So to make that a little bit thinner on this side. That's just my take on it because I don't like the way it looks. So you guys can choose to do what makes sense to you. But I think this needs to come in just a little bit this way. Just to create a bit of a more of that kind of thing, a bevel. And maybe pull that down just a touch. And then probably it has a bit of this part gets pulled out a little bit. And I'm wondering if I can do another loop cut and slide. I think I might do another loop cut in there just to make sure I have more control. More loop cuts, more control typically. So a little bit more detail, but that's okay. It's not going to kill me. Then I can expand this and that's going to be okay. Right, so maybe something looks like this and then extrude outward. And now we're going to have to fix it, right? So we're going to go a little bit more to there and then this way. So at least we have one edge and then we're going to do the other one by hands. So again, you might have been more successful with yours. I'm looking forward to seeing yours, guys. But you can get a really neat looking column with very little work, right? So it took me a long time because, again, we're going through it, but for the most part, this is me. I think I'm going to stop there now. And now, how about these pieces that I want to connect? And I don't need my reference diagram anymore, so I'm just going to turn it off. So I don't need it. Oops, not that one. The reference diagram, I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to get out of X-ray mode just for a second so I can see what this looks like. Pretty happy with it, actually. But the one piece I need to fix is this part here at the bottom and the top. So here's what we're going to do for the bottom. So when it comes to the bottom thing, again, we're still in mirror mode. Don't turn your mirror mode off yet. zoom in there to the bottom of it. Make sure everything's deselected. Go into your face select mode and select that bottom one. Delete it. So delete your faces, just your face. So you can see that there's no face anymore. And what I want to do is I want to start by selecting my edges. So I'm going to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. So those 4 edges around the base. And what you can do is you can subdivide the edges, right? So right now the edges are divided in half, right? So there's a point right there, and I want to divide it a couple more times. Let's just pull out that division. So there's 2. So now it's 3 points and 4 points. Let's say so a total of 3 cuts so far. Is that enough? 1, 2, 3. Let's deselect all and go to vertices and see if that's good. If it's not, then we're going to go back to it. 3 cuts. I think I need one more. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. That's not bad. That might actually work. 3 cuts. 3 cuts. 3 cuts. 3 cuts. 3 cuts look good. So how do you do that? How do you connect these? You just connect the vertices. So you go something like right click there. It's a little bit of manual work, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And you kind of connect it with that one, and you press F, and then do this one and F. And then what you do for the actual faces, and this is where the faces might get messed up, is you're going to Control Tab when you do it. So I'll let you do it too, where you kind of I want to make a face, between these ones. So you grab all these ones now, and you go F. Or you can just do it in one blow. So this one, and this one, and this one, and then you press F, right? And then that will make that one. So let me undo that one. I want to make this one and this one first, and then, oops, and then you want to make, oops, undo. I said this one and F, there we go. And then once you made that, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and make that face. Just to comment down to make it easier for me to see it, I'm going to go right into, so I can't see anything. It's going to be back into solid mode. So this one, face. This one, face. And then this one, face. This one, face. I'm just going to go around to do that other side as well. So this one, face. This one, face. And then this one, face. So why am I doing this? Because then when you select your material, it won't look too terrible. Just want to use a face here before I do that craziness. And same thing goes with this one. So this one, and then this one, and this one, and this one. Again, once I've done one side, I'll do the other side, which is great. All I'm doing is just making the lines first, and then I'm just connecting them all, and then pressing F again. So then I'll have all these faces. I think that's good. And we can check that by pressing face select mode. And then, oh, see, there's a face that's missing. I missed one. And if you go into mirror mode, now you see that there's ones, or sorry, X-ray mode will actually show you that there's a face missing. So go vertices, this one, this one, this one, this one. I think I've got everything on the bottom. All right. What do you guys, how you guys fared? Did you guys do what I did? Did you guys make those faces? If you didn't, so here's the challenge if you didn't do it, right? If you didn't do the faces, then what ends up happening is that when you bring it into Unity, you'll have like an extra shape. This will actually be a separate shape that's underneath this one. Now this is one big shape, which is better for us, right? So check mark if you did that one, X if you did it, you didn't do it, right? Again, almost there, guys. One of the exercises that we're doing here as well is I want you guys to consider different ways of, putting things together, right? That's what the exercise is too, right? So trying to figure out for yourself, um, what techniques could I use to make my own assets if I need to. Thank you for that feedback. And I think we're pretty close on this one too. So let's do the same thing on the top one, and then we're done. And then I'll put the whole archway on online for you guys, just like normal. All right, so face select mode, get rid of this one. And then now that that face is gone, we want to select our edges. So again, I want to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and the back edge. Then do a subdivide, right? I want to do a subdivide, and I'm going to subdivide with 3 cuts. All right. And now I have something that looks like this, just like before, right? Subdividing with 3 cuts. And remember, it's the same number of edges here, so or vertices. So we just do it an F first to connect the first one, then we do the next one, and then we do that face. So we do the first one, how about we do the first one, and then we do the face. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay, because you can always, it's better to have a face than no face. That's why I say it. Because otherwise what ends up happening is that even if it's not proportional or it's slightly off, it's okay, right? So this one should obviously connect to this one. And then what about these ones? Did I make a mistake? Did I have enough? Yeah, so 1, 2, 3. Did I make too many? I think I cut it too many times. Yep, I did. Undo. And that's okay, because I need to go with less cuts. That is a problem. So I can't go further back. Let's redo. Oh, Shift Z. Yeah, I thought so. It's going to be what it's going to be, guys. It's not going to be perfect because I made too many cuts. Don't worry about it. Who cares? As long as I can make a face. And if I have a triangle, oh well. At least it's a face. I didn't want to do a triangle, but you know what happens when you get overzealous. Oops, let's undo that. That's what happens. See, like I could probably have done a triangle here as opposed to the other way. It's okay. It's gonna look less perfect. Okay, sorry. That's okay, man. I'm not gonna correct it now. One thing we need to do, so that's weird. One thing we need to do is we definitely got to check our normals. Because if we don't check our normals and something is messed up, that would be very bad. If you're bringing it to Unity, you'll have like literally holes in your model, and you don't want that. So let's do that again. Again, nothing that is too crazy. that you haven't done before so far. And it doesn't have to be in a particular order. I'm just trying to speed up here because I'm losing time. Sorry, guys. We had that discussion earlier from an administrative perspective as well, because otherwise people would have been in trouble. Okay, there it is. It's not perfect, this top part, but it's okay. You won't even notice. And the reason why is because if I go back to the layout, you can see that the top, you won't see it messed up or anything like that. All right. So that is the columns. And now the last part is, let's bring back that reference for a second, reference diagram. Really, it's the same material the entire way, right? I mean, this is different, and we could go in there and add details in there. I'm not going to do that because there's already a little bit of details because of the fact that we're using our column. It's really about color more than anything else. And I think I want to make a consistent color. You could use a stone texture that is one color. My only reservation about it, when it comes to making that stone texture and applying a texture to everything uniformly, is that you may have skewing unless you make this texture really, really small. It's not terrible to do, but let's suppose I go into up online again and just grab a texture. The brick texture is one thing, that would have been nice, but now we're looking at marble material. So again, if I go to marble, and you've got to consider what you want to do here as a pattern, right? And how you're going to extract it. If you go with a pattern and it looks like something that looks like, oops, like this, so a bit of a pattern on it. Let's say something that looks like this, that's seamless and scalable. It's possible that this might look okay. But the problem is, let's just pull it down. So we'll call this marble seamless. Marble seamless. I should just pull up marble here, and I'll put it inside of our, yeah, somewhere in there. Save. So, and let's put that up on here, so you can have it too. So you can use this texture if you want. Here's marble texture. Let's rename it. Edit properties in place. We'll call this the marble texture. So you have that as well. And what I'll do is I will put up I'm going to pull up the blend file now. So if you couldn't do what I did and you want to join me from here, you can do that as well. So let's do that, okay? Because I know that again, you guys aren't, not all of you are game students, and some of you have more experience doing this than others, and that's totally fine. Like, it's not a big issue to do. So let's just pull that up as well. And we'll pull that blend file in there. So worst case scenario, guys, you can always use my blend file from this point, right? So we'll call it Stone Archway. And we'll pull that in there as well. So this is kind of the blend file. Okay, so you have that Stone Archway blend file up on eCentennial. You can always grab that right now and do the next part, which is going to be the texturing. And let's see how that looks. So, all right, so what do I do here? I'm going to hide my reference again. I don't need my reference. But what I want to do is I need to seal this up in the middle, right? That's one thing that I haven't done. So this is a great place to do a bunch of stuff. And one thing is to seal it up. So I'm going to go into layout mode, and I'm going to go apply my mirror modifier. So now there's no more mirroring. Mirroring's gone. And let's go back into modeling mode and see how close they are. So I've selected everything. And what I want to do now is I want to remove or merge, right, by distance. Merge by distance is what it's called. So it's mesh, cleanup, merge by distance. And right now it looks like there's 8 vertices, and I want you guys to move this bar just a bit more. So instead of 8, there's going to be like 0.02 would be good. So what I'm doing here is I'm just removing any duplicates that are layered on top of each other at 0.02. The way to get that again is mesh, right? And you want to clean up, and you're going to go to this place that says merge by distance. Merge my distance. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to press that, and then we're going to do the same thing. And then what if I was to do clean up, delete loose? What does that do? So that delete any loose items or anything that doesn't exist. So we're getting rid of all those things. Next, what we want to do is for all of this, I want to see what it looks like. Do I have everything? What do my normals look like, right? And what you can do is you can clearly see that there'll be issues, right? But this is where all the normals are, right? So if there's any issues, they'll pop up here. You'll see normals that look like they're going inwards, or you'll be missing normals in some places, right? Which is, you can see that this is pretty good, right? And you can always recalculate normals on the outside as well. So let's take that away. And to make sure that we don't have any weird normals, normals means that you're pointing inward or something like that, then what we want to do is we want to recalculate normals on the outside. So again, you're going to go to normals, mesh normals, recalculate outside. Recalculate outside. And again, if you look at it, when you do that, then you have all the normals pointing on the outside, right, as opposed to the inside. That's something that has to happen. Okay, now let's go and add in, now that we've done this as one big piece, go back to our edit mode, object mode, and now we have to add a material. Let's add the material. We're going to call this the stone arch, stone archway material. Let's actually take away that underscore, so I don't need it. Again, you could have downloaded it from Blender, from eCentennial at this point. I'm trying to make it easier for you. And now what we want to do, same thing, we want to go into this, we want to have one material, and I want to go into a texture, right? So for the material that I've got, Stoneway material, then how do I add a texture when this shows up, right? Because again, look at what I've got here, right? And it says brush and whatever, but what the heck is going on? And how do I fix this problem? Because look, I have this, right? Here's my Stoneway material, but I want to add in a texture to this. I want to add in a texture, right? So not the regular material and not my reference material, right? But I want to add in the other one. So the reference material actually has this. I can actually layer what my reference material is on top of this, but that would be a very bad idea, right? Because if I go here, you can see that that's still there, right? So what else could I do? How can I loop that together? So again, remember what I'm trying to do here. Let's not choose this. Let's try the stone archway material, this part. And so how is it that I have this here as opposed to this? Well, it looks kind of like this. There's none. There's none that I have there. There's the texture type, none, right? And I want to add a texture slot to this material, but it's not allowing me to do it. Why not? Could I do it in one step? So if I went to base color as an example, and I went to image texture for the base color, here it is, there we go. And if I click open, and if I go to that marble and click open image, right, now there is that marble. You can clearly see that there is a skewing. It's been applied, okay? So again, from a preview perspective, we can see what that would look like. Let's use maybe columns. No, not that. Columns. And so we can clearly see it's applied, but you can see that there's a skewing because when it got UV unwrapped, it unwrapped it so that it skewed everything all together. We need to do another unwrapping, and we're going to do that right now. All right, so how do we unwrap? We're going to go into UV editing mode, and we're going to take it into kind of an orthographic view like this. Notice that this is all messed up, right? And if I just go unwrap and I go something like smart UV project, then I can get something that looks more like this, islands. That makes more sense. And now they're proportional and they're not like out of this world in terms of the way it is. And that's probably the best we're going to get. Let's see if we can get that in there. I mean, we might be able to do better than this by dragging it bigger. I think this is too small. And what I mean by small is it's too close. So we can say is grab this and then make it really much smaller so that it's just a little bit of layering of texture, something that is much smaller than what we had. Maybe just a little bit of texturing is what I want, just a bit. And just to resize size, I'm looking at something like, let's say 4 everywhere. Let's go 4, 4, 4, just like we did before, something like that, 4 times the size. And I think there we'll have a pretty good level of detail that's not totally ugly. Maybe even more, guys, maybe even more. Maybe more than 4. Let's go with 8. I want even worse than that. What this means is the bigger we make our islands, the smaller the texture appears, right? Which is a good thing, right? So let me see that. Yeah. Yep. 8 looks like a lot better. So we got a little bit of texture, but not a whole hell of a lot. Cool. Excellent. We're good. Let's go back to our layout mode, and we've got our texture applied. Let's see what that looks like when we are laid out. Nice. So a little bit. That's what it looks like. Take a look. So kind of a slight variation on everything there. Nice. Save. Save, save, save. When it comes to the texture, let's go back to our image or movie and select which one I want. So instead of the Archway reference, I want to go to marble here. I want to pack it in. So we'll see where it says pack. Let's pack that in. That's right next to the marble texture, right? Save it. I definitely do not want to bring it from over my reference when I save the object, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go Export. One thing to do before you do anything else is in Edit mode, Control A, please. And I want you to do all transforms we're going to accept. So that's going to be 1, 1, 1, 1. So we don't want anything. This is going to be 100%. Here in Blender, save Control A, which is going to be accept. If I do Control A, it says apply all transformations. And the reason why we want to do that, otherwise we'll have like some things that are too proportional, weird, or whatever in some places, right? Okay, let's bring this archway into Unity now, and then we'll stop and take a short break and come back and finish with all the other stuff we want to do. So save, and we'll go File, Export, FBX. Again, what we want to do is we want to just click on Mesh and selected objects. That's important because we're just clicking this arch. And hold on. Let's change this to Archway, Stone Archway. Stone Archway. Again, anything you do here is what you're going to bring into Unity. So the more work you do here, the less work you have to do in Unity. That's the idea. So again, let's go do that. So File, Export, FBX. We only want the mesh, nothing else. We definitely want only the selected objects, and all the rest is the same. And we want to export FBX. Awesome. Okay, great. Let's now bring up Unity and get to the next part. So we did a lot of work already, believe it or not, and a lot of the work we wanted to do. So let's bring this over here. And any questions around some of the things? Would you do things differently? How about Tatiana? You had some comments before. Did you do things differently than me? A lot differently? Did you already finish? Maybe you'll refinish. What are your thoughts? Maybe you did.
No, I didn't finish yet, but
What do you mean? You're
yeah.
faster. Nice, nice, excellent. All right. So again, I think the idea is that you're going to do it your way. You're going to find ways in Blender to do it your own way. And the idea that you're making these little pieces is you can imagine you go the other way, and I take pieces from Unity and export to Blender and then modify that. How do I do it? But this is the way, right? All right, so I want to make a brand new folder like we've done last week. So we're going to go COMP397 winter 2022, and it's going to be week 4. There we are. And we're going to grab everything from here except for the library folder. Still, and not week 2. So week 3, but not week 2. There we go, and not the library folder. And copy it and go here. I don't know how, I guess I forgot it. And paste. There we go. Awesome. And let's bring up Unity now. So Unity. And I'm going to go into Open. Section 2. And Open. While this is opening, I can tell you a couple things that are shaping up on my end. It looks like some of the other colleges, like I said, are actually going in person already, which is pretty crazy this week because of the COVID restrictions being relaxed. Not Centennial. Centennial staying online. You guys are super lucky from that perspective because I think it's going to save us, transition time. I don't think there's a great plan on some of these other institutions that I'm working with right now, and that can cause some disruption. But I think the biggest thing that I'm worried about, I think as a professor and for the students, is social distancing. There's no social distancing, and as well as standards. I think they really have a lot of work to do in terms of bringing us back and making everyone feel safe. I think that's a really big one. Yeah, and that's what I agree with. Jerome's, thoughts are it's bad if they have to go back and forth now if COVID gets worse, kind of idea. I'm just paraphrasing. Yeah, and I think that you're right because the student experience would be affected, right? Again, here are the pros to being in person. The pros of being in person is we can actually have many more people talking with each other, and there's more, in my opinion, a lot more socialization than there is online. At the same time, you know, it's kind of a trade-off at this point. All right, so I brought up Unity. I'm going to go into the main scene because this is where I want to put everything. I've opened up the main scene, so double-clicked in there. And what I want to do now is get out of 2D mode, because I was in 2D mode before, and just focus on the player. So you can double-click on the player, or you can click on the player and press F to frame select. So again, if I'm way out here and I want to get right to the player, I click on the player and press F to frame select, right? F to frame select. And then I'm right in there. Okay, so this is where the player is. All right, so I want to put my stone archway in place. And again, I have a very small, area. Maybe what I can do is I can put it as and I don't have a lot of tiles either. I have a small amount of tiles in your version of the project, right? We can definitely expand these. But for now, what I want to do is just put the stone archway somewhere as kind of a decoration more than anything else, right? So you can definitely put it in a spot, and to do it properly, well, maybe we'll do it later on in Unity or in Blender, where we want to in Blender have another tile that's empty, kind of a tile that doesn't have anything in it, very, very flat, and a central tile we can put stuff in. But let's see how it brings, how it looks when bringing in as is. So again, I just have my stone archway, and I want to bring in the FBX, and I want to put it inside the models folder. So there's a stone archway, and we can get a preview of it. This is what it looks like, and it looks pretty good. One thing, the reason why I like to preview it in Unity is I don't want to see any holes anywhere. Okay, that would be very bad. And there it is. Okay, and I want to bring it in play. There it is. And we can see that it's proportionally the way we want it. We can put this stone archway any way we want, any place we want, just as a decoration for now. And so we can put it in place. Go. Our character can't really travel anywhere, but this could be, this is an example of a piece we'd want to bring in. Okay, so now we can call this stone archway. Stone archway. I definitely want to modify the archway in the model side. You can do this afterwards or before. And if I want to make it so you read write is on, I don't want to generate colliders here on this one. Although you could, if I generate colliders, we'll see what you get in a second. It'll be a mesh type collider, and definitely generate light map UVs and click apply. And if I go back to the stone archway, you can see that I have a mesh collider now, right? So that's something that is there. And you can't really see the mesh collider. If I made it convex, which is what you want to do, you can start seeing that it is kind of all the way around, and it covers everything, right? But we don't want to do that. We want to make it so that it is perfectly aligned, right? That's nice. And one thing that's missing is the materials. So let's do that next. So we'll go back to the stone archway, and we'll go to materials, and we'll extract materials, and we'll put that just like we did before inside of assets, materials, right? Let's make sure it's the right place. Assets, materials, and then we'll select that folder. And inside that folder, we should have the stone archway material. One thing that's missing is the texture, so let's grab that and drop it in here as well. So we have that texture. Did I not put it in here? Marble, here it is, marble. And there's the marble texture. And now we can see that even if it doesn't have it in, then we can attach the marble texture to the material. So again, if I go to materials and if I go to stone archway, see that material is missing, we can always go to the texture and just drag it in. And now you can see that has been applied. All right, so there's my stone. It doesn't look so bad. You can see that it looks okay. It's got a bit of, it looks a little better than the other stuff does right now, right? And it gives me a little bit more of a look and feel to my game compared to what I did before. So another little piece that we can add to it. All right, let's drag and drop this into prefabs, and we'll make it an original prefab. We'll call this stone archway. Here it is. And we can add as many stone archways as we want. And this could be something of a piece. This could be a target where you want to go, right? So thing. Are you going to upload the finished archway? You mean on Blender? On eCentennial? Oh, I'm going to give you the FBX is what I'm going to give you. All right, so let's do that. So we've imported that. So I'm going to file, save project, and exit. And let's put this up on GitHub. And then we'll take a short break. We'll come back and finish the other stuff that I want to do with you. I'm not sure we'll have time. You know, I think knowing now that your other stuff is going to be due a week away, I think I might as well, we may work on some other stuff today and just focus on WebGL as opposed to the other stuff. Let's see. Or maybe we'll do WebGL next week as opposed to this week, since you don't need it yet. Okay, so section, let's see, is this one? No. Okay. 397 section 2. That's you. All right, so that's it. We added that in, stage all changes, and we'll say we added week 4, added week 4 project files, commit changes, and push those up. And now what I want to do is on here, give you that FBX so that you have that one, Stone Archway FBX. Okay, there it is. So if you want to use the Stone Archway for the your Unity stuff, you can. Again, guys, like as you can see, so process just as a feedback for what the whole process looked like for us. We put it together. We have our Stone Archway, and if you did that every single week, if everyone came up with their own asset, for your game, you could have a pretty interesting looking game. And what did we do? We used a marble texture as a reference. The Archway texture, the Archway reference we used as just and it was a pretty bad reference, wasn't a great reference, but it was okay. We kind of made do with what we put up, and it wasn't bad, right? So I have a feeling that you guys, if you spend a little bit of time, you can do this too. All right, so let's stop here, and when we come back, we'll do the next piece. I'll give you all the assets that you need for the next part, which is going to be our mini map, and we'll get that done. All right, let's stop recording here. We'll take a short break. When I come back, we'll have everything that you need to get going. YouTube is off.